Hey everyone, have you ever swallowed a pill and thought, how in the world did someone even figure out how to make this thing? I know I have.
It really is incredible when you think about it.
Yeah. So today we're going to do a deep dive into this whole world of drug discovery.
Sounds good to me.
Specifically, we're focusing on like those very first steps. How do you go from a scientist having like an initial aha moment to that turning into an actual medicine that people can take?
Right. It's a long road.
Right. It is. So basically, imagine you've handed us like a stack of research papers, a bunch of notes.
Yeah.
Like, how do new drugs actually get discovered? Our mission today is to take all that information and like boil it down to the most important, coolest stuff.
Yeah. Try to make sense of it all.
Exactly. And I think you're the perfect person to help us do that.
I'll do my best.
You eat, sleep, and breathe drug discovery.
Well, most days at least.
So you're going to break down the science for us, but also like show us how amazingly complex it is.
It definitely is.
So are you ready to get started?
Definitely. Let's go.
Okay, great. So first off, we need to kind of like wrap our heads around just how big of a deal this whole thing is. I mean, we're talking 10 to 15 years.
Oh, yeah. At least.
And billions of dollars to take a drug from like a scientist bench in the lab to an actual medicine cabinet, right?
It's a massive undertaking for sure.
Massive. And, our listeners have specifically asked us to like zoom in on those really early stages.
Okay. Yeah, the early stage.
That initial like spark of an idea where they find a molecule that they think might actually work as a medicine, and how do they even know where to start?
Mm.
So it all begins with something called high-throughput screening.
Right.
Sounds kind of fancy,
Oh,
right?
yeah, it is a bit of a mouthful.
It is.
But basically, it's kind of like imagine a lab where robots are doing all the chemistry work
Okay.
and they're testing thousands, even millions of different compounds
Wow.
against like a specific disease target. So you can almost think of it like a giant chemistry lottery.
Oh, I like that. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. But where do all these compounds even come from? It's not like they just magically appear, right?
Yeah, not quite magic, but it's pretty cool where they come from. You have these huge libraries of chemicals that have been, built up over the years. Some of them have been made in labs. Others, they come from natural sources like plants.
Oh, interesting.
And increasingly, scientists are actually using computers to just design new molecules from scratch.
Wow.
So, it's really a cool mix of like old school chemistry and like super cutting edge tech all kind of coming together.
Okay. So you've got these robots. They're sifting through this giant library of chemicals. What are they actually looking for in this like molecular lottery?
So they are looking for what we call a hit.
A hit.
Which is basically a compound that seems to do something to the disease target that we're interested in.
Okay.
So, for example, let's say we're trying to make a new painkiller.
Okay.
A hit might be a compound that blocks a certain receptor that's involved in pain. But, and this is important, a hit is just the first step in a very, very long journey.
So it's like finding a diamond in the rough, right? It has potential, but it still needs a lot of work before it becomes like that beautiful, sparkly gem.
That's a great analogy. And that's where medicinal chemistry comes into the picture.
Okay, so tell me more about that.
So medicinal chemists, they are the master craftspeople who take this promising hit compound.
Okay.
And they're carefully modifying it, tweaking it to try and turn it into something that's safe and effective as an actual medicine.
Okay. So what are some of the challenges they run into? Because it can't be as easy as it sounds, right?
Oh, no, definitely not. So for one thing, the hit compound, it might be toxic.
Yeah.
It could break down too quickly in the body. It might not even get absorbed properly. Sometimes it could even interact in a bad way with other medicines that someone's taking.
Oh, wow.
So there's a ton of obstacles that they have to overcome.
So it's kind of like a giant puzzle, right? You're tweaking this molecule, but each change could have some unintended consequence.
Right, exactly. It's a really delicate balancing act. They have to boost the drug's effectiveness, but also make sure it doesn't cause a lot of side effects. And then also you have to make sure that it can be made into like a pill that someone can actually swallow or, an injection or something.
Right. Practical stuff.
Exactly. It's not easy.
So I'm curious, do you have any examples from your own work at OPR&D that can kind of bring this all to life? Like, how does this actually work in the real world?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Let me tell you about this one project we were working on. It was a potential new treatment for Alzheimer's disease.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we had found this hit compound that seemed really promising. It showed really good activity against one of the key enzymes that we think drives the disease.
That's amazing. So you guys had this potential breakthrough on your hands. What happened next?
Well, unfortunately, we ran into a big problem pretty quickly. The tests showed that the compound was being metabolized super fast in the liver,
Okay.
so it was basically getting broken down by the body before it could even reach its target in the brain.
Oh, that's got to be so frustrating. It's like the compound got lost on its way to, fight the disease.
Yeah, exactly.
So what did you guys do?
Well, it was a setback for sure, but it's actually pretty common in drug discovery. So we all put on our medicinal chemistry hats and we started brainstorming, like, how can we tweak the structure of this molecule to make it more resistant to metabolism?
Okay, how do you even go about doing that? Do you just like randomly start changing things until something works?
Ha, no, I wish it was that easy. It's actually very systematic. So we used computer modeling to try and predict how different modifications would affect the properties of the molecule.
Oh, cool.
And then based on that, we synthesize a bunch of different versions of the compound, each one with just like a tiny little change to the structure.
Okay.
And then we tested all those in the lab.
So it's like being a molecular architect, right?
Yeah.
You're carefully redesigning the building blocks of this compound
Yeah,
to
exactly.
get what you want.
And it took a lot of tries, but finally, after like a ton of rounds of designing, making these new compounds and testing them, we finally found one that was much more stable in the body.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And the best part was it still kept its activity against that target enzyme that we wanted to hit.
So you outmaneuvered the liver. You outsmarted it,
I guess you could say that. It was a big win for the team, for sure.
I bet.
But of course, that was just one of many hurdles to get over. There's a ton more challenges to tackle before this compound could actually move on to, like, the next steps and eventually become a medicine.
Right. But this is a really good illustration of how important medicinal chemistry is. You're taking this promising hit and turning it into something that could actually be a drug someday.
Exactly. It's a challenging field, but it's so rewarding to be a part of.
So you mentioned stability. What are some of the other things that medicinal chemists have to think about when they're refining these hit compounds?
So another big one is solubility. The drug, it needs to dissolve properly in the fluids in your body so it can get absorbed and actually reach its target.
Right. Makes sense. It's like when you dissolve sugar in water. Some things dissolve easier than others.
Exactly. And if a drug doesn't dissolve well, then it's not going to get absorbed very well,
Right.
which means it's not going to be as effective.
Yeah.
So medicinal chemists, they spend a lot of time trying to improve the solubility of a compound. Sometimes they tweak its structure. Other times they explore different, what we call formulations.
Formulations, what does that mean?
So that's basically like how the drug is packaged, like, is it a pill, a capsule, a liquid? All those things can affect how it dissolves and gets absorbed in the body.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about the molecule itself.
Mhm.
It's also about how it's given to people, how it's presented to the body.
Exactly. It's a multifaceted problem, and medicinal chemists, they play a huge role in optimizing all those different aspects.
So it's like chemistry, biology, and a little bit of like pharmaceutical engineering all rolled into one.
Exactly. You have to have a deep understanding of how all these different pieces fit together. You know how molecules behave in different biological systems? It's fascinating.
I can imagine. So we've talked about robots and libraries of chemicals, and then these really talented medicinal chemists who are like tweaking and refining those molecules. It's amazing to think about how much science and creativity goes into just those first few steps of discovering a new drug.
Yeah, it really does lay the groundwork for everything else that happens after. And I think it helps to explain why it takes so long and costs so much to make a new medicine.
Right. Every single step is important.
Mm.
From finding that initial hit to optimizing all the different properties, it all matters. So at the end of the day, what are the key takeaways that you want our listeners to walk away with? What should they really remember about this early phase of drug discovery?
Well, I think the first thing is to remember that drug discovery is not a straight line.
Okay.
There's constant setbacks and unexpected hurdles. There's a lot of trial and error involved.
Like navigating a maze, right? Every turn could lead to a dead end or a new path forward.
Exactly. And the second thing is to remember that it's not just about finding a molecule that works against a disease target.
Right.
It's about making sure that molecule can actually become a medicine. It has to be safe, it has to be effective, and you have to be able to actually give it to people.
Right. So it has to survive the journey through the body,
Yeah.
actually get to its target,
Yeah.
and then, do its job without causing a bunch of side effects.
Exactly. And that's where the expertise of those medicinal chemists comes in.
Right. They're the ones that figure all that out.
They're the unsung heroes. They use their knowledge of chemistry and biology to overcome all these challenges and actually turn these promising hits into real drug candidates.
It's like taking a raw ingredient and
Yeah.
turning it into this delicious gourmet meal.
I like that. That's a great way to put it.
So last but not least, what else should people remember?
I think it's important to appreciate how collaborative drug discovery really is.
Okay.
You know, it takes scientists from all these different fields working together to solve these really complex problems.
Yeah, like a team effort.
Totally. It really is a testament to human ingenuity
Absolutely.
and our drive to find better treatments for diseases.
Well, I have to say, this has been so insightful. It's really cool to kind of get this peek behind the curtain and see how all these early steps in drug discovery really set the stage for, for future breakthroughs in medicine.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's a field that often goes unnoticed, but it's really the foundation of everything we do in modern medicine.
I agree. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of drug discovery.
My pleasure.
Hopefully you learned something new and exciting today.
I hope so too.
And until next time, keep those brains buzzing. We'll catch you on our next deep dive.
See you then.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. There's this one project that really stands out. It was a potential new treatment for Alzheimer's disease.
Oh, wow.
And we had found this hit compound that looked really, really promising. It had really good activity against a key enzyme that we think is, involved in the disease.
That's incredible. So you had like this potential breakthrough on your hands. What happened next?
Well, the initial tests, they revealed a pretty major problem. The compound was being metabolized super fast in the liver, like really fast.
Okay.
So basically it was getting chewed up by the body before it could even get to the brain where it needed to be.
Oh, that's such a huge setback. It's
Yeah.
like the compound was, getting lost on its way to the battlefield.
Yeah, exactly. It was really frustrating. But, it's actually a pretty common challenge in drug discovery.
Right.
So, what do? We got to put on our medicinal chemistry hats and figure out how to fix it.
Right.
So we started exploring ways to tweak the compound's structure
Right.
to make it, harder for the liver to break it down so quickly.
Okay. How do you even do that? I mean, do you just start changing things randomly until something works?
No, I wish it were that easy. It's actually a really systematic process.
Okay.
So we used computer modeling to predict, how different modifications would affect the molecule.
Oh, cool.
And then we synthesized a bunch of different versions of the compound, like each one with just a tiny little change to the structure.
Okay.
And we tested each one in the lab to see how they behaved.
So it's like you're a molecular architect,
Ah.
right? You're carefully redesigning the building blocks of the compound
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it.
to make it do what you want it to do.
Exactly. And you know what? It took a lot of tries, but we finally found one that worked.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, after tons of rounds of design and synthesis and testing, we finally landed on an analog that was way more stable in the body.
That's amazing.
And the best part, it still had great activity against that target enzyme.
So you basically outmaneuvered the liver. You outsmarted it.
I guess you could say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge win for the team. But of course, that was just one hurdle down. There's always more challenges to face before, this compound could actually move on to the later stages of development.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
But it's a great example of how crucial medicinal chemistry is.
Yeah.
You're taking this promising hit and turning it into something that could actually become a real drug someday.
Yeah, exactly. It's a challenging field, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
So we've talked about stability. What are some of the other properties that medicinal chemists need to consider when they're trying to refine these hit compounds?
Another really big one is solubility. The drug needs to be able to dissolve properly in the body's fluids
Okay.
so it can be absorbed and reach its target.
Right. That makes sense. It's kind of like when you try to dissolve sugar in water. Some things dissolve more easily than others.
Exactly. And if a drug doesn't dissolve well, it's not going to be absorbed as efficiently. And that means it won't be as effective.
Got it. So how do you improve solubility?
Well, medicinal chemists can sometimes tweak the structure of the compound to make it more soluble. Or they can explore different formulations.
Formulations. What's that?
Oh, it's basically how the drug is packaged.
Yep.
Like, is it a pill? Is it a capsule? Is it a liquid? All of those things can affect how the drug dissolves and gets absorbed in the body.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just about the molecule itself. It's also about how it's delivered to the body.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
a really multifaceted challenge. And medicinal chemists play a huge role in optimizing all those different aspects.
Wow. So it's like chemistry, biology, and a bit of pharmaceutical engineering
Yeah.
all rolled into one.
You got it. It's all connected. You have to understand how all these different pieces fit together, how the molecules behave in different systems. It's really fascinating.
This has been amazing. I
Yeah.
feel like we've gone from like robots and these huge libraries of chemicals to like the super detailed work of these medicinal chemists who are like carefully crafting these molecules.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It really has. And it's so cool to see just how much like science and creativity goes into just those first few steps of, trying to discover a new drug.
It really does lay the foundation for everything that comes after.
Yeah, and it helps explain why it takes so long and costs so much money to develop a new drug,
Yeah.
right? Because every single step from finding that first fit to making sure that it have all the right properties, it all matters.
Absolutely. Every step is critical to making sure that we end up with a safe and effective medicine for patients.
So at the end of the day, what are the key takeaways that you want our listeners to, walk away with? What should they remember about this early phase of drug discovery?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is that drug discovery is not a straight line. There are always setbacks, unexpected hurdles, lots of trial and error. It's a really iterative process.
It's like navigating a maze, right?
Right.
Every turn could lead you to a dead end or like a new path forward.
Exactly. And the second thing to remember is that it's not just about finding a molecule that works against a disease target. It's about making sure that molecule can actually be turned into a medicine that is safe and effective and practical to give to people.
Right. So it has to, survive the journey through the body, actually reach its target and do its job without causing a bunch of side effects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where the expertise of those medicinal chemists is so essential. They're the ones who figure all that out.
Yeah, they really are like the unsung heroes of drug discovery.
Absolutely. They use their knowledge of chemistry and biology to overcome all those challenges and turn those promising hits into actual drug candidates that can be tested and potentially move forward.
It's like taking a raw ingredient and turning it into like a delicious gourmet meal.
That's a great analogy.
And last but not least, is there anything else that's important for people to remember?
Oh, I think it's also important to appreciate how collaborative drug discovery is. It takes scientists from all these different fields working together to solve these really complex problems.
Yeah, it's a real team effort.
It really is. It's a testament to human ingenuity and our desire to find better treatments for diseases.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so insightful. I feel like we've really gotten a glimpse into this world of drug discovery and how those early steps are so crucial for medical breakthroughs.
I'm glad you found it interesting. It's a field that often goes unnoticed, but it really is at the heart of modern medicine.
Well, thanks again for joining us on this deep dive into drug discovery. We hope you learned something new and exciting today. And until next time, keep those brains buzzing.
See you next time.
We'll catch you on our next deep dive.